Escorts Testing, Episode 2.
It was a stupid mistake. I would never do that to you.
No, but you did, didn't you?
Please don't go.
I don't have a choice. We move out at dawn. Tell Martin about it. You're good at that.
Andrew! Please! Andrew!
Parker stirred as the memories came back unbidden and unwanted. Like grim spectres, they haunted her dreams as she caught what rest she could in the roving truck. The images changed, switching from one painful memory to another. In her state of dreaming memory, she saw the door open to reveal the military postman waiting for her.
I'm sorry, Miss Parker.
The flash of memory darkened as she saw herself reach for the letter the postman held. Already she knew what it contained, and the pain of her heartbreak and regret twisted in her gut. She felt herself stagger, but even as she reached to steady herself, the dream shifted. In its place, flashes of a funeral and Martin's disdainful smirk as he looked across to her. She watched him turn away, willfully deaf to her pleas as all the pain of her guilt tore at her. Snipe watched her carefully from the other side of the truck, observing her facial movements as she dreamt. It seemed Sandra Parker rarely showed much emotion beyond anger when awake, but in her sleep, her dreams betrayed more of the truth lurking beneath. Snipe watched as Sandra's scarred hand moved to the former soldier's belly, resting there in gentle caress. Sandra frowned heavily all of a sudden, as though gripped by more painful memories.
You used me.
You didn't complain at the time. Now look, you're coming crawling back. Think I give a shit about some knocked up slut?
You piece of shit.
You took what was offered, bitch. Get off me, and don't kid yourself. You wanted it too.
I didn't want any of this.
Maybe not. But being alone for a long time has that effect on a girl, doesn't it?
You little shit. You had him transferred, didn't you? It was you! You fucker!
Maybe if he could deliver the goods, you wouldn't have been so eager to jump into bed with somebody better equipped. You never could turn down a better offer, could you, babe?
Was it you? Answer me!
She flinched again as she remembered the fall, the noise of the ambulance sirens, and the pain of what followed. Her hand tightened to her belly, and she grit her teeth as the pain of the loss replayed in her mind. Snipe watched her expressions closely, taking occasional glances to the front of the truck as they approached their destination.
Well. Look who it is.
There. That's the one.
Sandra remembered the sense of justice and anger that boiled in her as she led the military police to the officer's mess. Martin had seemed surprised at first, but it wasn't long before the same cold smile returned to his face.
Captain Williams, can you come with us, please?
Sandra remembered him finishing his drink, the same smarmy expression drawn over his face as he rose. She should have known then, but the loss was too recent, the pain too great. It wasn't till later when she realized. Martin and the little slimy tow rag of a corporal that followed him around. She didn't remember his name, only the infuriating curl of his smile, as the two of them paid visit to her house.
Evening, bitch.
She flinched again as the memory boiled back, her fists clenching as though ready to fight it all over again.
Think that a few meaningless tattletales from a slut like you would get them to kick me out? Who the fuck do you think you are?
She remembered the corporal snickering as Martin passed over her, eager for a fight as he kicked her away coolly.
You know, I think the bitch needs a lesson, Hank.
She had launched herself from the floor, and even now she could remember that rush of adrenaline and power, the urge for vengeance and the burning need to see his smile carved from his face for all he had done. Her hand clenched again, remembering the feel of the knife and the wash of blood over her fingers as the corporal slid from her blade. The shock had stunned her. The blow meant an anger for Martin, instead driven into the heart of the corporal foolish enough to stand by him. The memories blurred after that, a wash of grey and shock as she'd been discharged and thrown into the penal legion, left with nothing but anger and regret. She'd been lucky. The death penalty should have been what awaited her. Instead, the judge had taken pity on her, citing her loss and grief. Exile over death. There had seemed little difference at the time.
Skorch. We're here.
Sandra woke groggily, looking up past the driver to see only the urban street up ahead.
Where the fuck are we?
Mr. Darrow has provided you your combat gear for this mission. Consider this a test run of its capabilities.
Sandra glanced around as the assassin indicated a simple-looking assortment of armored pads, coupled with a pair of slight-looking gauntlets to be worn over her forearms.
We are here to neutralize a threat. It must be done quietly and thoroughly. Be ready.
Sandra scowled at her as she readied her gear, clasping one hand tightly as the gauntlets slid into place. As she compressed her fist, a small spray of sparks flickered from the end, and she smiled as she willed the sparks into a hiss of flame. The candle-like fire sputtered, and she looked up to the assassin with a smile.
All right. Who's the target?
Captain Williams.
What?
She took a moment to process the answer, hardly able to believe she'd woken from her dream to this place. Snipe said no more, and walked out of the truck, turning to wait as the digital camouflage washed over her.
Your target is Captain Martin Williams, formerly 18th Rifles Regiment, presently residing at 18th.
Snipe barely finished the sentence before Sandra stormed past her. The assassin watched silently, keeping a modest distance as Sandra stormed down the open but empty street. Within moments she found it, a small terraced house of modest look. She clenched her hands, only then realizing tears were falling from her eyes as she looked at the home of the man who had haunted her dreams and fueled her hatred for so long. She hesitated, almost reaching to knock at the door before the dark anger in her guts boiled over. Withdrawing her hand, she instead slammed her heavy boot into the door, smashing it from the frame in a shower of plastic splinters. A man rushed out as she shoved aside the last of the obstruction, his dressing gown open and billowing as he stood in shock.
What? What the fuck?
Evening, bitch.
The hate boiled. At the first sight of him, all of her fears and thoughts burned away. She stepped inside, shoving him to the floor, even as her fist clenched with a spray of sparks. At once, the sparks coalesced, becoming a roaring spiral spike of flame that eagerly hissed as she stalked into the hallway.
Who the fuck are you?
What's the matter? Don't recognize me, you lying shit.
She followed him into the living room, oblivious to the children's toys scattered about the floor. A large dog angrily charged her, but in her rage, it died almost instantly in a torrent of heat and razor flames. She advanced coldly, watching William stagger away as he retreated into the kitchen, pulling knives from the rack to fling at her as she dodged or swatted them away.
I spent years thinking how to kill you. Is this all?
What the fuck do you want?
I want my husband back. I want my life back. You took everything from me.
She snapped her hand forward, and the cooker door shattered as the food within roasted in the angry flames. Martin roared, retrieving a large cleaver and swinging at her with precise and deadly strokes. Skorch dodged every blow, blocking the last with her gauntlet before slicing the flaming torch at her fist to cut Martin's arm clean at the shoulder.
What is going on? Oh my god.
Get back! Run!
Skorch snapped her attention back to them as the woman and girl rushed into the lounge. In horror, they looked at her before Martin's warning snapped them into flight. Skorch was too incensed, her hand rising up as the curling flame in her palm burst outward, engulfing the doorway and trapping them in the lounge.
No! Leave them alone!
You fucking dare ask me that? Did you leave me alone when I had your child? Do you know what it felt like to watch the last thing you cared for slip away in your arms? Did you even feel shame? Did you even notice? Did you?
The inferno of rage in her chest changed. At the thought of her betrayed husband and the child she had lost, the heat guttered and became something darker, something colder, and something crueler.
You will.
Without listening to their pleas, or even looking in their eyes, Sandra clenched her fist and swung her arm out towards the two crying figures trapped near the lounge sofa. At once, the fires twisted, the demonic heat eagerly devouring their screaming figures. Sandra was deaf to their pleas, the tears rolling from her eyes evaporating before they could even reach her cheeks. She turned to him, and was shocked to see him not in tears or mourning, but pleading for his own worthless life. Watching him as he reached out to her, she felt the last vestiges of her humanity slipping away in the hateful flood of vengeance.
Sandra, listen to me. What happened was a mistake. I see that now. I was wrong to do that to you. You don't have to...
Tell me his name.
What?
Tell me the name of our boy before you kicked us down the stairs, before you killed him!
Martin hesitated, unsure what to say, but Skorch had an answer of her own. She swept forward, slapping her palm over his mouth and pinning him against the kitchen worktop as she repeated the name again and again.
It was Andrew!
The heat from her hand washed into him like a river of fire, his cheeks glowing red as his eyes boiled. He couldn't scream, and Skorch was too angry to listen. After a few moments, she let him fall, his ashen waist falling in on itself like burned out wood in a fireplace. Stepping back, she glared down to him, crying out as she poured flames down onto the disintegrating body.
It seems the weapon meets basic requirements.
Skorch left the house as the fires continued to spread, her face and eyes empty of emotion. She had nothing left, not even vengeance, and the void it left seemed all-encompassing. Even that glimmer for justice was gone. All of it was lost to flames. As she approached, the fires were already engulfing the house and threatening to spread to the buildings adjacent. If Skorch even noticed at all, she gave no sign of caring.
Skorch, are you ready for your first true assignment?
The assassin watched the redhead as she caught her breath, her face covered in ash. Beneath the dirt there was something of a cruel smile. As she turned her gaze towards the assassin, even Snipe seemed a little nervous at the cold depths in those eyes.
Never could turn down an offer.